Hey, Jim,
Yes, ma'am.
do we have a special guest today?
We do.
Light from Lantern presents Knit a Spell. I'm magical maker, Katie Rempe.
And I'm the maker of magic, James Devine.
Join us as we stitch together the symbiotic relationship between crafting
And the craft. Welcome to Knit a Spell. Our guest today is Auntie Sindy Todo.
Woo!
She's a professional rootworker, conjurer, a spiritual coach, an energy worker, a healer, an intuitive, a bone reader, and a friend. A friend in need is a friend indeed. She's
Yay.
amazing. Welcome, Auntie Sindy Todo.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yay.
It's so good to see you guys and be here.
I am so happy to have you on. Now, of course, we are friends. We've known each other for, a number of years now.
Mm-hmm.
And you're local to me in Seattle and to Katie in the Seattle area. And I just adore you so much. And I am so glad you're here talking about our topic today, which is
Crafting with bones.
the bones, or as Auntie Sindy Todo says, dem bones.
Oh,
Dim bones.
oh my gosh.
She just put a bone in her mouth. So this is an episode that we're going to do really, really well describing. But dear listener, you should watch this episode on YouTube or on IGTV, because Auntie Sindy Todo will be doing things like putting bones in her mouth, or you'll see artwork or you'll see visuals that are just going to be amazing. So
Yes, a picture
watch
is
it
worth
if you
a million
can.
words.
Exactly.
Mm.
Well, I'm excited.
Me too. It's a topic that some people might shy away from, but as a person who loves to use natural alternatives to things, I'm totally into. So having a actual specialist, someone who knows what they're doing on here to kind of dig into it a little bit is a really big treat. Yay!
So let's talk about bones.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about you, Cindy, Auntie Sindy. So let's talk about your history. So tell us a little bit more about you beyond the bio that I said.
Mhm.
How you identify, how you got into sort of the mystical world.
Okay. Well, I have been, as you mentioned, I've been doing root work professionally and reading people, and I started counting last night and went, wow, this has gotten really long. So I would say professionally for about almost 30 years. I was born on the coast of Texas and Louisiana. My heritage is I'm Cajun and Lebanese. My grandmother on my mother's side was a sharecropper and had 13 kids, and she took all her children to the root doctor because that's all they could afford to do. And the root doctor would tell her what to do. And that I remember my mama talking about Miss Louise, and Miss Louise, whoever Miss Louise was, the root doctor, would say, go home and do this tea and take this bath and say these prayers over them, and so on and so forth. And so this was something that grandmother practiced. And then my Lebanese grandmother read cards and coffee. She read playing cards and coffee grinds and all that kind of thing, because she had a boarding house. And so the boarders would ask her to do their readings for them. So as I got older and realized that these were gifts that were passed to me, and I started working more with them, and would just make stuff for people on a kind of, here, try this and do that. And that's how it all gets going. And then you just keep developing, and that's my story of how it works.
That's amazing.
Fascinating. Wow.
Yeah. So root work is a form of American folk magic, just for folks to understand.
Yes.
That this is healing. It's often what people did as a form of healing or remedies for whatever might be ailing you, right? And this is like, if I have a sore back, it's like medical things, but isn't it also like if I'm heart sick, or if I just feel depressed, or is it physical as well as psychological as well as spiritual?
Absolutely. And I think what happens is, as you develop and as you start growing in your practice, you figure out what you're really good at doing and what spirit is telling you you're supposed to do. So for me, when I first started out, and of course, a lot of conjure workers start with the kind of things that everybody gets a hit on is love work and financial work and health work and protection work and so on. And so for me, I was always called to do protection work, frankly, which is real interesting, because in my, what I call my straight business, in my other world, the mundane world, my day job, I have been a manager of small businesses on their financial pieces for many, many, many years. So that kind of ties into protecting. When you're protecting people's money and when you're working with it, you tend to also know how to change it up and make it work for people and help them on other ways. So I do a lot of that. I think the biggest part of being a root worker and a conjure worker is knowing effective cleansing. And effective cleansing carries over to all your work. So if you don't effectively know how to cleanse a person and them follow your directions, then that's how your work's going to work. You got to start with cleansing. Usually, always. I don't know how I get off on this tangent, but
I think that's
have a strong
amazing.
Foundation.
Yes, it is the foundation.
Well, you got to start with a clean house. I mean, isn't that what
totally?
Every time we see one of those shows where they're like, I want to redo my house, I want to redo my kitchen, you got to start by cleaning the house and cleaning the kitchen before you paint it or remodel it or do anything that you want to improve. It always starts with the cleaning. And that's true of our bodies. It's true of us spiritually. It's true of us psychologically. I got to clear the stuff before I can build something new. Right.
Yes.
That's right. And you know why I've always said, especially if you have something nasty going on and things ain't right and you're just a mess, the best thing you can do is get on your knees in front of the toilet and clean it.
Right.
And talk everything out into that toilet and flush that sucker down. And that's how you're going to move. You're going to shift a whole lot of energy real fast in your environment. Clean the toilet.
Get your poop in a group. I love it.
Whatever.
But isn't that true? Sometimes you just need a good cry.
Yeah.
Or if you went out last night, sometimes you just need to purge yourself and then you just feel better.
Well, think about how you feel when you actually are sick and you have to be on your knees in front of the throne and you do cry and you feel real crappy and your whole body just lets loose because it's out of control, right? It's the same thing. If you kind of go into that zone, but this way you're really cleansing it, cleaning at the same time, you're going to have some effective energy purge.
Right.
Yeah.
And that really is, we use the term I was heaving from my bones. I was sort of crying from the bottom, from my core, from my bones. Right. So if we think about, I think about that, and the topic of today is really thinking about how our bones and how they're magical. Right. So when you think about, we wanted to bring you in because I know that you work with, I have some experience also in magic with bones, and Katie is going to talk about the connection between bones and crafts and crafting. And we're going to talk about bones and the craft. But what's your connection with bones, Cindy? Auntie Cindy, how do you work with bones in your practice? And do you have an idea? What is your perspective on what bones represent? I have an idea too, but I'm curious what your perspective is.
There's several mediums, if you will, or that I like to tie into all my work. And it's feathers, bones, keys, teeth, and railroad spikes.
Ooh.
Now I know that's not all sounds like what a hodgepodge of stuff, but in fact, when I build any kind of work, and anything that I'm making or that I've created, it's going to have usually all those things, those pieces in it. So bones for me, first of all, kind of, every bone that you touch and every bone that you use, you're connecting to the spirit of that bone, of that creature, of that animal, or that person, or that whatever, part it is. And the whole piece of it is the bone will talk to you if you're so inclined to listen or know how to work with them. So when I first started throwing bones, for instance, and got my bone set to throw, and I was like, whatever, I never knew about bone throwing. I'd done stuff, and my friend Star actually turned me on it. She said, and it was 6 a.m. one morning early. We were doing a big deal workshop thing in New Orleans, which we did every year for a long time. And the old gals were up early. So I had this set of bones she had given me the year before, but I never activated it, gone into it. And she goes, and I said, I'm going to get these bones and let's talk about it. So I got the bones out. We started talking about it. She starts telling me all this stuff. And that day, I completely flipped over and started reading with bones, because they were just like, yuck, 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 yuck. Here's what this means. Here's what that means. Here's how you look at it. Here's how you read. And it was so easy in a way. It's my own way. Now, there are people who, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because there are people who are learned. Oh my God, they've studied it. They know. And this is not me. I just let the bones talk to me and tell me what I need to hear.
What's happening? Yeah.
And at the same time with your spirit. So if I'm reading you, first of all, I'm going to connect to you real hard, and I'm going to call you in.
Yeah.
And then all of that transfers, and then boom, it lays out real fast. You've seen me do this a million times.
Yes. So to describe it to people, so throwing the bones is a collection of bones, little bones and trinkets that are in either a bag or a box. And the reader will take this collection, sort of shake it around. They'll cleanse it in a certain way. Different people have different ways of doing it. And then they'll cast it. So they'll throw the bones, or they'll toss them into a large bowl or a large dish, or on a sacred fabric or a piece of leather. I've seen it done many ways, perhaps on a table or a surface. And then how the bones and trinkets drop, how they interact and interlock and touch each other and their distance from each other will mean something. And then what Auntie Sindy will do, she has a picker, a little like pointer piece, and she'll pick through the bones and sort of point at them. And so perhaps the jawbone is touching the, one like cat bone, and she'll say, oh, this means someone's talking about you, and this means something else. And over here, and maybe there's a little dice, and the die is up on the 7, and she's like, oh, lucky 7 is up. And so this means you got some luck going on. And maybe the good fortune symbol is there. And she says, this is really fortunate for you. And so what is ever speaking to her from your spirit and the spirit of the bones, and they're just in her mind, and it occurs to her. So to get the picture of it, that picture of it is it's visually beautiful and amazing to see all of the little trinkets that are there. As someone who's had their bones read by Auntie Sindy, for me, you're sort of like drawn into the bones, and like I'm fascinated. And everything else in the room vanishes, and all I hear is Auntie Sindy's voice. And I see all the bones and all the trinkets and how they're interlocked. And it's fascinating. It is the coolest experience to get. I mean, I can't speak it up enough. It is the coolest experience to have Auntie Sindy do a bone reading for you.
Oh my gosh. I want
the sound, the sound of the bones like shaking around in the bag and then being cast down. The sight of the bones, the smell of the rum as she's like purifying it, the incense, it's amazing. So this is so if you're watching, Here you go. If this is when
Oh.
you want to be watching.
So
Yeah,
it's a
these right
divinatory
here.
system, essentially.
Pardon me?
Just it's really a divinatory system like runes or tarot or
It
anything
is.
else, just with
Absolutely.
different. So cool.
Yeah, so my base set of bones are these 13, and these are raccoon bones, and this right here is a raccoon jaw bone, and then I've got all kind of little stuff. These are some big old moose knuckle bones, and then you got like a bone dice, and have to have an alligator paw because that's me, and I have to have a snake vertebrae, and I'll show y'all some more of that later. But this is kind of just I just grabbed some off my stuff, and then this is my black cat bone that was also from my friend Star, and a real blessing bone to have because this is about luck and protection when it's thrown on top of stuff. So there's kind of that. But I throw on my daddy and my father-in-law's white handkerchiefs. And I've always thrown on them because they both love me very much. And when I call in their spirit to ground me to when I'm doing this, boom, it's right there. So people throw in a lot of stuff. You can get real elaborate, but I've always used their handkerchiefs. And so that's why
Real simple. There's so much love in it, and it's awesome. So why bones? Bones represent the earth element, right? So when we think about the legacy of bones, when an animal dies, what is left after the animal is gone are bones. Bones have been used for tools, for you'll have a bone that will last for hundreds of thousands of years. It'll even, fossilize. Bones are used as tools by ancient people. Bones are really, really powerful. They're actual tools, and they're used as magical tools, and those often come together. Whatever people were using as actual tools to dig or cut or craft with always became then magical tools because they were tools for subsistence. They were tools for survival. And so they became very, very valuable and very, very important, right? If you found a moose bone and you could form it into a spear or into a handle, into something, it became really, really valuable because those were kind of hard to come by. They weren't once you started hunting, but a good one or a solid one that wouldn't break, you wanted those things and you would use those things because hunting was very hard. And to get a moose or to get a big animal like that was a difficult task, right? And so you start to think about the power and the magic of the essence of an animal, of what remains of an animal or of a human, after our flesh is gone. This is like, it starts to really connect with our essence and who we are. And so we start to think about our essence is in our bones. And so we have a lot of sayings of, I was shivering to my bones. I'm cold to my bones.
Yes.
So you see that the magic, we have a lot of those kind of sayings, right? What are some of the sayings that you both think about, like, that are it's in my bones, right? The magic is
to the bone.
Yeah. The magic is in Auntie Cindy's bones. It's just in her bones.
Yes.
Yeah. You feel, the expression, I feel it in my bones. Yeah. If you can feel it deep in your bones, and, think about, as you get older and I've had to have this, everybody's like, what's your bone density and all that. And that's why you're always about taking care of your bones. And, like if a bone breaks and it's a kind of, it's really, it's the base of everything to me. It's the base of everything. As you were speaking about old bones and long bones and so on, I have two. I want to show y'all these, even though it's hard to see. I'm going to describe them to everybody because I just got this one for Christmas. This is a rattle that is actually a tortoise or a turtle. I'm not. Wow. Yeah,
turtle shell. Yeah,
and it's very, very old. I have no idea how old, and given to me as a gift, and it's a treasure rattle. So this would be a huge piece to use in a cleansing or in a ceremonial, like in calling in spirit in a dancing mode, but a gorgeous, gorgeous piece. And I'm just so proud to have it as a gift. Now, I also use coyote. This is nice coyote bones. Or they're usually about 5-6 inches long, and they're real strong. And you use coyote because it's got such good energy around coyotes. I use them for rattles and for cleansing rattles. This is one that was made that has a chicken foot on the end because you're going to scratch. This is when you cleanse, you're going to scratch up everything and get everything off. And it's got, naturally, it's got some nice chicken feathers here, some black chicken. It's got some cowrie shells, got some hanging snake vertebrae on here. And this one has a nice Native American feel to it. Got some little glass skulls and some, I love these red rosary beads because these are all about protection. This was made for one of my boys that's his rattle. And I remember I had it here. So I wanted to show you. It's a killer. I love it.
Gosh, that's so beautiful. So I have a question before we go on our break. And I think it's an important one to talk about because it's what's essentially stopped me from working with bones. And that is the sourcing and the ethicalness of it. Like, where can I obtain these materials where I can be confident that the animals weren't tortured or whatever? Or it's, how can where can I get these things in a good way?
Well, I've had friends that pick up roadkill. Okay. So, there's
going to be the other thing. Just nature.
I mean, that happens. Yeah. If you're all about harvesting stuff yourself and you can deal with it, great. I have a entire cat skeleton that was given to me. So my friends were remodeling and they were digging up their backyard and they remembered that this cat that was a Tom, he was a real Casanova and he had died and they had buried him. And then they were going to remodel. They went, oh, shoot, we're going to be digging up Casanova. Tom here, they'd call him Tom. So they had dug him up, put it all in a jar, and it was in their garage. And so they're going to remodel. They go, hey, we have this cat. And I'm going, oh, my God, of course I'll take it. They wanted to give it to me. And from that cat, I made my spirit brother's first set of bones. So you see the whole way they come to you is a blessing. And so you got to kind of pass that on. Now, I've bought bones when I'm looking for specific bones. There's a Native American a company up in New Jersey, way up there, called Chichester Inc. And I highly recommend you. They got everything you could possibly want in a lot of ways.
The link.
Yeah, super nice people to work with. And of course, you have to mind whatever your state's thing is about what you bring in and what you don't. You got to watch your P's and Q's there. And yes, good to know. And I get I have so many things that people will give to me, and depending on who it is, I am really careful. And then the crows, because my totem is a crow and they're my people, and they're all over the place here at my house. This is right here's a little crow skull that and so I work with this little guy when I'm for a lot of different ways, and he stays around here. He stays behind me on my altar. So it's how they come to you, but I think in giving them and gifting to you is really great. I love alligator paws. There's a big old alligator paw that came from Louisiana, and that's because from my Cajun side, I got to have the alligator paws. And so,
I'm from Florida. I feel that.
There you go, girl.
I think
my personal rattle is an alligator paw on the end instead of a chicken foot. But
it's important to know, alligators are not endangered. That's an important thing to know. And
Yeah.
sourcing. I like that, if you can find an online or a company that's committed to sourcing ethically and, there are those out there. So do your research is a really important thing. And I love how we're able to find things, like in the way that you said that they're passed along in those ways is really cool. It's beautiful.
I have found that once you're open to working with something like that, you do just kind of come across things.
That's right.
And maybe that's just like the law of attraction. When you start looking for it, it comes to you. But I also feel like when you start seeing it, that's also like permission from whatever it is. Like you found it, you can have this.
Right. And never accept any kind of magical tool with any fear in your spirit. So if you have any hesitation at all that you're like, oh, that kind of that creeps me out that was her cat's bone. Well, then it ain't going to work for you. You absolutely won't work for you, and don't take it, because that'd probably be a good sign too. So, not everyone is called to work with bones. I'll be the first to say that. In fact, I don't meet a lot of people that are in terms of throwing them and reading them and that kind of thing. Maybe more so nowadays. Back when I started, I didn't know very many people, but, yeah. So, don't force a form of divination on yourself just because it's out there. It's just like tarot. I got 25 tarot decks. I don't read tarot, frankly. I got them if I need them, but I'll go to pull one up and maybe not, but I'll read a playing card deck, or I'll read whatever. I got these great new crow cards that I just love that are fun. So,
just got to find your thing. That's a good note for anything.
Don't force. I love that quote. Don't force a form of divination upon yourself just because it's out there. That's a great quote.
Correct.
I would also agree that could be for anything like crafting too. This is something that you choose to do. Like if knitting drives you nuts, you don't have to do this. I do remember reminding people that a couple of times. So
yeah, you don't have to knit.
You don't have to. You can get a sweater for like $20 over at the big box store. You don't have to do any of this.
Yeah, I mean our podcast is called Knit a Spell, but it could be crochet a spell or paint a spell or
glue a spell.
Glue a spell.
A glue gun.
Play a piano a spell.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes. So to make a spell, really. Anyway. Okay, so that's awesome. Let's take a quick break and then we'll come right back.
In mid-October, I am teaching Introduction to Palmistry. And if you are on my website, thedivinehand.com, you can sign up to take Introduction to Palmistry 4 sessions. You can learn to read hands, to read palms. It is the funnest class. So go to my website and read about it. There's a bunch of reviews on my website that tell you all about it. It's so fun.
Well, you know where to go to find out more. It's thedivinehand.com.
I just love my dog Pancakes. In fact, she's the reason I designed the little blankie pattern. It's a cute little throw blanket with a hint of magic that's perfect for any baby, furry or not. Truth be told, I've been known to cuddle up with Little Blankie myself on a few chilly nights. Don't tell Pancakes. Learn more about Little Blankie and all of my knitting patterns at lightfromlantern.com.
And we're back. So in part 2, I thought it would be fun to talk about the crafting instead of the craft. This is the crafting side of working with bones. As a knitter, I'm pretty sure one of the first materials that knitting needles were made out of were bones. It would make perfect sense. And still, there's a lot of places that will make things like, buttons and things like that. But traditionally, the needles now are more like wood or metal, plastic, which makes me so sad.
Hashtag ban plastic.
I mean, yeah, why though? So yeah, I'm really interested in why you think someone should turn to a bone option as opposed to especially like a plastic option for crafting in any kind of case.
Wow. Well, one, if you're whatever you're making, I see, for me, anytime I'm crafting anything, I'm conjure crafting. So, in fact, I used to have Conjure Crafternoons, and me and my spirit brother would sit and we would literally conjure craft what we were making for whatever purpose. So let's say you're knitting something, and I could easily see where, because tying knots are a big thing in conjure work. So I could see where, as you're knitting in, you're also knitting in a bone. And like, let's say you have, and this is,
show us that box. Show us that box.
You can get these at.
So let me describe. Auntie Sindy just opened a great big box, and it's full of ribs and vertebrae
from rattlesnakes.
Rattlesnakes.
So
which is so fun. And so the cool thing about these guys is they're little vertebrae. They have little holes, right? And you can string this together.
String the rib through the vertebrae.
You could knit through the vertebrae, right? And what this would do would be helping someone, or if you were in the whatever you're making, could be to help them for strength and flexibility. So let's say, spinal work. So think about how you're trying to help somebody. Like here's a picture of a railroad spike that I did with all snake vertebrae.
So it's a railroad spike, and on the outside of it is attached all kinds of bones of snake vertebrae sort of hanging all around it. You can barely tell that it's a railroad spike inside there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, and of course, a railroad spike is my canvas. So I use railroad spikes. I can do anything on glue anything. I'm just a nut about a railroad spike. Same way with teeth. So you can do, here's one with teeth. And chains.
I also love teeth.
Love teeth. Yes. I mean, I've had my dentist. I'd go, please save me teeth.
I got a fight with one of my dentists about how he would not give me my teeth, and I was very upset about it.
Oh man, I just went to an oral surgeon, and he was talking about how some of his assistants want a container of teeth, and I said, sign me up. I want some. Yes, I'm going to hit him hard. But these little vertebrae, these little ribs, Katie, would be fabulous. And they hook in really nice. Ooh. So you could take any piece that you create and you could make weave it crossroads and stuff. Yeah, weave them in. I think it'd be killer to do that. And so snake vertebrae is really a lot of fun. And they're good to do mixed in with other items. Like, so here's during COVID, I had I was like, okay, I ain't working a lot, so I'm gonna got to get all my crap out, and the whole dining room was full of stuff because I started crafting stuff, and I decided to make healthcare workers. And so I would read what was going on the week that this was happening. And every week, so all these particular railroad spikes they all have little blue surgical hats on, like a tie around their head wraps. So they look like they were healthcare workers. They all have, usually up front, right under them is a little medal of Mother Mary, because I'm a big Mother Mary, of course, helps us with anything that's to help things change. And they all I do kind of various hanging down. They all have wings. They have Palo Santo arms because you can burn the arms. See, you can light the arms to help cleanse. And then that's part of the way that the work works. Mm-hmm. So in whatever week this one, and I wrote down why this one was made, and the bones, this one has all kind of keys on it and scissors and clocks, like it was time for change. I think this was right towards the end. So I did like 13 of these. So every month or week, I can't even remember. I did one on when George Floyd died. I did one on Black Lives Matter week. I did one on Pride week. I did one I had 3 people pass each week that these people passed. I did a prosperity one, but they all incorporate some type of bone in it for sure.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
They're just grounding. Bones are just solid, and they're just going to help, make stuff happen. You just can't, You just can't know. It's real hard for me to even let go. Like people, my husband go, what are you going to keep all those? You're going to sell them. And I go, I don't know if I can sell them. And because I got real attached to them all.
That's what I was going to ask. What do you do with all of them?
I do sell them. Yes.
Oh.
And I have sold, I have sold some of these. Yeah.
Well, especially if you're like a healthcare worker, I would love to have something like that in there, right?
Well, call me up.
Well, there you go. That's a great idea. God, and what a great way to work out like feelings of anxiety and hopelessness. Like it's a way for you to do something about what is maybe felt like generally something too big for you to do anything about as one person. But, if many people are doing this and having it in the collective consciousness, that's a huge opportunity for change. So it's really inspiring.
Tell us a little bit about with that same idea, how the spike, what's the meaning of why you're decorating, why you're embellishing and putting magic onto a railroad spike. So what is the connection with that? Because I think that's a cool,
Jim knows because Jim has brought me railroad spikes from across the country.
True.
Everybody does. And I probably, I have a whole garden window I call it the iron window because there's not anything live in it. It's all iron. It's a lot of spikes and horseshoes and old iron from my grandmother. Railroad spikes. Oh my gosh. I think they're some of the most powerful tools that ever came about because they helped lay the land across this whole country for sure. Certainly on the backs of a lot of immigrants and people who worked the railroads, and the spikes were driven in to create direction. And then they were also pulled out to redirect. So for me, they're about change and they're about how to help redirect or how to nail down whatever your intention is for that particular work. If this gal right here, the one I just showed you, was about protection, the spike is going to keep it solid and drive that home. So I'd put petitions under this spike. I'd burn candles by it. I have one that's all done in purple, for instance, for healing. So it's what they mean to me, but the spike will take on the whole, as I'm making them, will take on the whole, they just become alive and they just create the work. When you use like teeth, for instance, as I was showing you I did one that was called Tooth and Nail. And I did little nails and teeth on the spike, because it was driving home the thing of, you got to really dig in tooth and nail to get something done. So it's heavy work. That was a real dominating spike. And
I think about the connection between like the spike kind of being like a bone, like the rail kind of being like the bones of our country, connecting it together. Like what's the locomotive is on the bones, this sort of backbone. We even talk about the railroad being sort of the backbone of the country, right?
Yes.
And those spikes are sort of related to that. And this whole idea of being able to do sort of a magical intention on a railroad spike and then using that spike on an intention to spike it. And so you kind of take that work, put your intention, and then place that railroad spike on top of your intention or your petition or your whatever you're doing, and then be able to really amp it up with that spike and imagine that energy going into your intention and then spreading outward into the real world. It's really powerful. It's very powerful.
Railroad spikes have been in Conjure forever. And, one of the easiest works to do with railroad spikes is you nail down like your property. So you would drive a spike into the four corners of your property to nail down that this is mine. And I always say you put a silver dime with the spike in the four corners. And then old school was you also urinated on it. So it was, this is mine.
Yes.
And that's how you nailed that was old, very old.
Go pee in the corners.
Just like the dog. Yes.
It works. It totally does. They also, every one of these, it's like whenever I have huge buckets of these in the garage and stuff, and I'll tell my husband when I started doing these, I said I need 13 spikes and we got to make 13 stands, and it turns into a huge project here, and he lovingly cleans these spikes. So he has a way that he brushes them off, and then we have to, they have to have a little like it's like a lacquer on it so that I can glue to it so the rust doesn't come through. So the spikes it's called recharging. You're recharging them, and you recharge anything when you cleanse it, right? And then you pray on it, and y'all smoke them all, and you oil them out, and then they just are, is treasures. And then he picks them out, starts the whole thing for me, and then I have it. They're treasures. I love a railroad spike.
So interesting. So, brief side note about railroad spikes. We had a garage sale like over the summer, and one thing I was giving away was my Thoth tarot deck. It never really resonated with me. I always felt like it was very like masculine and kind of just didn't work for me. So I figured, well, maybe somebody will like it, and there you go. Mm-hmm. So I put it out there, and a guy came and he was like, "Oh, really? You're giving this away?" And I was like, "If it calls to you, it's yours." And so he's like, "Oh, okay, hold on. We need to do a trade." And so he went into his car and came back out with this railroad spike. And it was, I'm thinking maybe within the week that Jim had showed me his. So there you go. And I was just wondering, how
and you
do
mean
you
the
get
one
these?
that Auntie Sindy made for me?
Yes.
Oh,
so there you go.
We should make you one, Katie.
I guess I have a part of it here, so that's good.
And that's right. If you send it to me, I'll fix you up. You tell me what you want on it. The other thing you should do too is, I was just looking at it, is I could see, and you'll see people use railroad spikes down south and make all kind of, hat racks and all kind of hangings. I never have, but I could see you take, when you turn one sideways, and then if you, like so, and then if you what's that called, horizontally, and then if you you could tie things, you could crochet things off of it hanging down in different levels, and you could work in some bones into that piece. So it's sort of, not to sound all macrame-ish or anything, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
But you can also sew in petitions in it. Anything that's hanging and knotted. So I've done that for little children for when they're gonna like baby showers. I would make a long cord, and all the attendees would write their intentions for the babies on a piece. I'd have paper, and we would tie it in, and it became like a long blessing cord for them, and it hangs in their rooms. And then as they get older, they can read what everybody intended for them. You could do the same deal and it's all with weaving. I would weave so many different colors of yarn or fabric or whatever, make a big old thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So my gosh.
Oh no, I get all excited when I talk about crafting shit.
We need to have a crafting thing. Remember you said
a crafternoon.
Yeah, well, you should redo that. I'm totally down. I'm very inspired now. Yeah, I was even thinking like, oh, you could do a shawl where like there's a spine and you use only bones that are spines down the spine. Like, so now I'm just beads as bones. All my brain is buzzing now.
Good.
I love it.
Oh my god.
This has been so much fun.
Yes, I agree. Okay, so one other question I wanted to ask. So when it comes to your pets, my pet in particular, I love my dog. And I was like, I want her bones after she's dead because maybe I want to make it a necklace, and I just won't tell anybody it's my dog. But like, do you know how can one go about that? Do you know if that's something that's actually like easy to do? There's
an organization. There's a new method, I think, of, how they cremate dogs and stuff. Well, there's a new method, and God, I can't think of the name of it to save my life. It's right here in West Seattle though, but It's a type of boiling kind of it's organic and it's a nice way of breaking down, but then the bones are left. And you could do that short of you bury them and then years later you harvest. One of my dogs is buried at the foundation of our house. Now, I will say though, I have literally a duffel bag in my downstairs. I'm kind of surprised I'm even saying this. Full of dog hair that I've cut dog's hair. I've had 5 Shih Tzus. I have 2 Shih Tzus now, but we've had 3 that have passed. And I'd cut their hair. I'm their groomer. So I would save their haircuts. Here's Beanie's first haircut. Here's Pinto's first hair. And I would save different haircuts. So this duffel bag of dog hair, because I'd always heard about people knitting hair sweaters or shawls or whatever. And I wanted my dog, and that's as great as could be to me. But you could incorporate some bones. I have feathers from our bird, I have, that's a good call. I had their teeth.
All of that.
The doctor give you the teeth.
Oh, well, anyway. We'll have to hook you up with one of our prior guests, Amanda Manis, who was doing spinning with pet hair to make yarn.
Please.
To then do all of that.
I want her name. Because I've been trying to find somebody that does that shit because people think I'm not. I had to hide it from my sister when she came. I didn't want her to be embarrassed that I had all this dog hair I've been saving for 25 years.
I think you will love that episode that we had with her on. Highly recommend that for your listening enjoyment later.
Thank you.
It'll make you feel so normal.
That episode's fun because we talk about the magical connection, the magical meaning of many different types of animal fur. And then we talk about how you can use your own pet's fur in making yarn and how there are companies that do that. They weave it in and then they wash it and make it really marvelous. So
yeah, it's pretty fun.
That is so cool. I think it's so cool.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, Auntie Sindy, we could have you here for hours. I could keep grilling you all day long and we could come up with a million amazing crafting ideas, which I think we should do as a side note anyway. But yeah, I just really appreciate your time, especially last minute.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here. Visit Auntie Sindy Todo at ToDoMojo.com and you can order a spike of your own, get an amazing reading, and just check out some of Auntie Sindy's fabulous conjure root work and general magic. I am totally in love with Auntie Sindy Todo. And you will be too when you see her. So Thank you for being on our podcast and for hanging out with us. I love you so much.
Yes.
I love you too. And it's so nice to meet you, Katie. Thank you.
Yes.
It's always a pleasure to be with my Jimbo. And I always say he was like a second husband that I'd always want. Yeah, he's
he's the best.
My buddy. Y'all take care. And
thank you, Cindy.
Stay safe. Get your shots. Everybody, if you ain't got a shot, go get a shot.
Go get your shots. That's right.
Go get your shot.
And if you need some amazing patterns to knit some bones into, you can get those at Light from Lantern on Instagram or at Katie's website, lightfromlantern.com.
And I heard registration for learning palmistry is now open.
That's right.
Learn more at thedivinehand.com or be sure to hit him up on Instagram at divinehandjim.
Yes.
Yes.
The best.
This has been a blast.
Ain't nothing like it.
Yes. All right, everybody. Until next week, thanks for joining us and we'll see you again soon.
Bye, everybody.
Ciao.
This episode is a wrap. If you enjoyed what you heard, go ahead and follow us on your favorite podcast streaming app. And don't forget, you can see full video episodes of Knit a Spell on Light from Lantern's YouTube channel.